Sirajuddin Ajmal.
Thank you, Honorable Madam, for giving me chance to speak on this in this August House. I rise to highlight my comments on the GST bill. Madam, I, on behalf of my party, AIUDF, appreciate the efforts towards reducing the complexities in the regime of indirect taxation. It is said that GST will be a game-changing reform for the Indian economy by creating common Indian market and reducing the cascading effect of tax on the cost of goods and services. It will impact the tax structure, tax incidence, tax computation, tax payment, compliance and credit utilization, and reporting, leading to a complete overhaul of the current indirect tax system. Madam, currently we have multiple tax windows as illustrated by various colleagues in this August House. I would not like to repeat that. It is said that GST is the best option for reform in the economic system of the country, and its implementation would give relief to people of the country. Its positive impact would go a long distance. The suppliers, manufacturers, wholesalers and retailers will be able to recover GST incurred on input cost as tax credits. This would reduce the cost of doing business, thus enabling fairer prices for consumers. So government has taken several measures before implementing GST. Otherwise, it would badly affect common and poor people of the country. So government needs to work at various levels for successful reform in its true meaning. Respected Madam, fixing the rate of GST was one of the basic challenges in the way of GST. However, a 4-tier GST tax slabs have been decided by the GST Council. The GST being a consumption-based tax, states with higher consumption of goods and services will have better revenues. So the cooperation from state government would be one of the key factors for the success of implementation of GST. So government has to take the state government into confidence. Madam, one of the most significant challenges for successful implementation of GST is to have good IT infrastructure in the country. We know that we are far behind in having electricity, internet connection in our country, especially in the rural areas. Government needs to work on that. It was expected to be in line with slogan of the government, one nation, one tax, but it seems that GST excludes Jammu and Kashmir. Madam, albeit there may not be separate constitutional status for northeastern states like Jammu and Kashmir, but special attention ought to have been given for developing trade and industries which helps to generate employment for youths of northeastern states. It is very unfortunate that except for the lower threshold limit to northeastern states, for the taxpayers, there is no special provision for northeastern states, in spite of the fact that the 101 Constitutional Amendment Act empowers GST Council to make special provision for northeastern states. Madam, there is no seamless flow of credit considering place of supply provision. There should have been a mechanism of seamless flow of credit of all the taxes paid in any state ought to have been allowed to take the credit without any negative list. Respected Madam, the strength of our Indian economy is in the villages, and number of villages deprived of electricity and internet connection, it makes things worse for them. Either they will have to go to a professional tax return preparer or application service provider or GST Suvidha provider, which will have extra cost burden on them. Madam, it was expected that the government will take measures to educate trade and industries, not only in towns and cities, but even in far-flung areas in rural India, and this has not been done. Composition scheme is announced, but any person doing interstate sales will be entitled for composition scheme in the northern eastern states and lots of trades happen in interstate, and they will be deprived of opting for composition scheme. Thereby, a lot of hardship will be faced by them. Further, they are neither allowed to take input tax credit or collect tax to be paid to the government, and hence they will not be able to compete with dealers around the country. It seems that the government wants to kill poor dealers and help big industries. Respected Madam, though GST has been implemented in a number of countries in the world, there was unrest in each of these countries, and hence the inflation. While anti-profiteering measures clause has been introduced, it will be used for harassment of the trade and industries. There is no mechanism to prevent any harassment. And Madam, I think there is scope for changes and modification in the current drafted GST bill that were highlighted by many of our colleagues. So government needs to think on those lines. Respected Madam, there are many objections from trade associations such as GST will make life more complex. Every month, 3 returns have to be filed. Small traders will find it extremely cumbersome. Just 2 minutes. Many trade associations have made representation, but they have not been discussed in detail. The rules are not notified as yet, but government expects the traders to absorb everything in 4 months. That is not enough for such an historic reform. If one has paid GST, but the collecting party has not paid or has not filed return, then the first party is penalized. And this is no fault of his own. Respected Madam, as their objections have root and base, therefore government needs to redress their concerns and problems. I request the Honorable Minister to remove anomalies in the present bill and adopt required rectification for simplified airborne beneficial laws. I conclude my speech with hope that government will keep the interest of poor people and top priority and implementing GST. Process should not be a punishment. Thank you, Madam.